Well, good morning to all of you shooters and reloaders out there. It's Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the hot lead zone. And today we're going to go ahead and do some wet tumbling of our brass. And as you know, it really cleans up and polishes that brass well. It traps all the contaminants for easy removal in the water. And if you dump the water in the toilet, then it gets treated so that all the heavy elements and stuff and the debris will be taken out of it before it gets returned to the wastewater. But anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because I was watching the news conference this morning that the President of the United States was having with the Prime Minister of Australia. And the Prime Minister of Australia is so proud of the fact that they're doing some coal production in Australia, big part of their economy, and they're doing it by wet means so that they don't get any dust. And without the dust, they're not getting that black lung disease. Well, there's dust here too, in our brass. And contaminants contain lead and other contaminants that are not healthy for us. If we dry tumble, we get the dust. The dust will be on the cases after they're polished, and we have to handle it. And we'll have exposure to the contaminants, including the lead. So, wet tumbling, wet coal mining is the way to go. And so what I've got here, all these are 45 caliber casings, including 45 Schofield, 45 Colt, 45-55 Dabo, 45-70, and we're going to go ahead and put these all into our wet tumbler. So just pour those all in, and I forgot to mention that there's also about 30 458 Winchester Magnum cases in here also. But now I'm going to go ahead and add some 45 Schofield that was shot with black powder substitute Hodgdon 777 3FG. So here are the 45 Schofields shot with the black powder substitute, and these cases have been sitting for about a week, and I don't see any corrosion, but there definitely is all that black powder substitute fouling on these cases. Let's see how well they come out after wet tumbling. However, here are 48 500 Smith & Wesson cases, again after about a week with the black powder substitute 777 3FG fired in these brass casings. It looks like there might be a little bit of corrosion on these cases, especially on the head. So let's see how these clean up after a week. Aha, it looks like there is some corrosion on some of these. So from now on, I'm not going to be letting those sit for even a week. We need to treat this brass as soon as possible after firing with black powder or black powder substitutes. Now, I forgot to mention that the 500 Smith & Wesson has a problem in tumbling, whether you're wet tumbling or dry tumbling, is because the 500 Smith & Wesson is such a large opening in the case that almost anything else can interdigitate with the 500 Smith & Wesson case. So if you mix 500 Smith & Wesson cases with almost anything, they're liable to get stuck together. Well, let's see how big a problem that is. Well, there it is, all tumbling away. Because I'm using hot water, an hour should do. Okay, all of you shooters and reloaders out there, I've stacked the deck. This load was not a full load of brass. And the brass wasn't that grungy. So what you're about to see, if this doesn't convince you that wet tumbling is the way to go, then I really can't show you any better. So let's just pour this down the toilet, and there's nothing, oops, it flushed. But I think you saw how dirty that water was. That would have been concentrated into your dry media. And that dry media, because of the vibration, gets pounded and grounded down into finer and finer dust. If that's what you want, then it's your decision. I have no stake in this other than to show you the best way to handle the contaminants in our brass. So there are the cases fresh out of the wet tumbler poured out, and you'll see that some of them, like this one here, didn't get polished as well as the others. And that reason why is because this one got interdigitated into a 500 Smith & Wesson case, and everyone that did that didn't get polished. So like for instance, this one here that has the little rim, that has the little bit of black powder or 777 residue there, that one was also interdigitated into a 500 case. So I'll have to kind of go in there and swab that out a little bit. But overall, they did very well, as you see. In fact, here's one that is still interdigitated. As you see, if I go ahead and separate it like this, you see it didn't get quite as nicely polished. And like this one here, that has the residue inside there, that's because the case was interdigitated into that one. But otherwise, the brass would be like factory new. Well, while this brass was wet tumbling, I went and finished watching the press conference between President of the United States and also the Prime Minister of Australia, a gentleman named Scott Morrison. And the values of the two countries are very unified, and the friendship that exists between Australia and the United States goes back a long way. And it's a pity we don't study history today, because the names of the Coral Sea and Guadalcanal and New Guinea and Port Moresby, those what happened there to stop tyranny and murder from happening to Australia was something that historically will cement the friendships and the relationship that Australia and the USA has will be cemented forever by those events. So anyway, again, pity we don't study history anymore. But all I can say is hail to the great country of Australia, and also hail to all the great Aussies out there. And you know I've said that before. Anyway, great brass we have here. Friendships and relationships are like gold. Bye for now.